to do is I'm just going to get the. I'm going to quickly show you the rough that I produced for the client, and that's the image just coming up now. And this was basically just a monochromatic rough. Once I put some tone into this pencil sketch, digital sketch, I should say, I realized that the positioning of homes was too low. So I raised them up. It's a great idea to always try to throw some mass, some tonal mass into your drawings if you're going to do a painting, to try to get a feel for the actual compositional shapes, because lines lie. And so as soon as I put some tone into those figures, I realized that I needed to move homes up a little bit. So anyway, I quickly just blocked in some, just a quick monochromatic pass indicating a very basic lighting. And I'd already indicated to Meredith that the background was going to be quite gestural. In fact, I showed her a picture by John Singer Sargent called Edouard and Mary Louise Pillion. It's a painting done in 1881, and it's of two children sitting in front of a huge red backdrop of cloth. And I sort of thought that, and of course when you think about stages, you often have cloth backdrops. And I really love the idea of using red as well, and I'll go into that a little bit further later on. So in terms of the background, I didn't need to worry too much about that for the rough. So once I got the rough out of the way and got that approved, I then realized I wanted to make another change, and that was I felt that the silhouette of the White Fox woman was not reading clearly enough because of the obstruction of Holmes's leg. It was just not working very well. So I took a bit of a bold decision by actually moving Holmes even further behind the character of the White Fox woman, to the point where he's now literally inquisitively peering out behind her, but is obstructed primarily by her. And that is really very much primarily driven by the fact that I just wanted to get the silhouettes to read really clearly, and I just felt that he was a little bit too low, and it was just breaking the silhouette of her up too much. Okay, so I suppose at this stage I'm just trying to block out my picture. I suppose I'm treating it a little bit like I would if I was painting this traditionally in oils, more and perhaps in the style of Rembrandt in terms of the early work. But you'd have your canvas, and then you would obviously get your picture onto the canvas, potentially painting or drawing onto the canvas. You'd have the canvas texture, so quite often I overlay some photographic canvas texture or paper texture onto the image, and then I very quickly just start to block out the forms monochromatically. Certainly, one of the benefits of working monochromatically at the beginning is that you don't get stuck or tied down by color. You're just thinking of things in terms of their form and tone and the lighting, and it gives you a chance to kind of play around with lighting and composition without having to worry about color. And of course, the great thing with Photoshop and even traditional oil painting, as I said, in the style of Rembrandt or Titian or those guys, they would work monochromatically, and the color would come later. So it can be a very good way to start off, just depending on the style you're going for. I mean, this whole job is being driven by a particular style that I'm trying to achieve. But a lot of these techniques can be used across a number of different illustration styles. And I think probably what would be quite good to talk about briefly is pose and silhouette. And these are things which, as a character designer at Weta, something that we spend quite a lot of time focusing on. It's amazing how often a really great pose will sell your design more effectively, and it's worth investing that little bit of time in getting a really good, powerful pose that suits the characters. I mean, if you've got a character that's old and wizened and frail, then you would not present that character in a heroic chest out kind of pose. You'd obviously have that character bent over and looking rather frail. So you match the pose to the character, but obviously in concept design, you want to pick a pose that demonstrates the design really well. A strong, a not too extreme three-quarter pose, or so that you can actually sell the costuming and the design. This is not a concept design. This is illustration, but still, I'm placing a lot of emphasis on getting really strong poses and kind of iconographic silhouettes. The character White Fox, she's a powerful, otherworldly character, and dangerous as well as beautiful. Classic femme fatale, and so I was quite keen to explore a pose that was very dramatic, contrived in a dramatic sense too, like an actor striking a pose on the stage. And but I was to try get that sort of more slightly dangerous feel to her. That's why I chose to put a sword in her arm, and put her arm outstretched. And in fact, I chose to put the arm sort of in a position that was sort of emphasizing the diagonal shape of the dress. And what that's doing is it's creating a very strong diagonal composition, which a triangular composition with her at the apex, basically her head at the apex. When you're designing a composition, you obviously are always thinking about where you want to lead the eye, the viewer's eye. And in this particular case, the primary focal point I wanted for this picture was her face, her upper. Your eye should really go to her first, and then Holmes is the secondary character in this particular case, and part of that is going to be a tonal thing. She's going to be mostly in white, which means she's going to pop. So a large part of that's going to happen naturally, regardless of the composition. But she's, in terms of overlapping forms, she's the one in front, Holmes is behind her. So again, it's just emphasizing that idea that she's first, she's the primary focal point for this illustration. Like I said, you want to engender a degree of interest in your illustration, hopefully, and bringing in props can be a great thing. As I said, I brought in the sword as a means of kind of getting across the idea that she's a deadly foe. It also gave me a chance to bring in something that was distinctly Chinese as well, because of course the dress is very much Victorian inspired, but so I needed to start bringing in some of these Chinese elements. The fan, obviously the fan is a common sort of object both in Western and Eastern cultures. And the fan that I'm using in this particular case was actually a Spanish fan, but I was going to make some changes to that to make it more of an Eastern fan. And again, that fan just gives a degree of so another cultural identifier, but also that degree of sophistication. And you often sort of see portraits of beautiful women with fans. It's kind of a bit of a historical precedent in some sort of portraits. So again, it's that whole thing of sort of striking a dramatic pose and giving her props to accentuate that kind of dramatic pose. So that's the kind of sort of pose idea behind her. The shape, obviously you want to get her shape reading really clearly. That's why the arm is broken free of her body, and why the fan is also not within the shape of her body. It's broken outside her body. It overlaps with her body, but it's breaking out of it so that that fan shape will read clearly against the background. And right from the outset, I was really keen to play with the idea of the hair design. This is, and I'll talk more about hair design and later, but just this idea of giving her tying her back to the idea of her name, Fox, by styling her hair into two pointed ears, to create a really distinctive silhouette and character. And again, this is something which we do a lot of in the film industry. Is try to you try to give your character a single dominant feature which can identify that character from a silhouette point of view. So even if she was filled completely black, and you're just seeing just seeing her as a shape, she would be immediately identifiable, not just by her sword and by her fan, but most importantly in this case by that very unique hairstyle. For Sherlock Holmes, obviously he's a very well-known, iconic character in Western folklore and literary circles, and I wanted to have a bit of fun turning some of those conventions on its head. So you so often see Sherlock Holmes in profile, holding his magnifying glass, smoking his pipe. It's such an iconic view of Holmes, and I think because she's staring so intently forward, I thought it was quite nice that Holmes could kind of, in a kind of a playful sense, be peering out behind her, on the trail of some elusive clue that would eventually lead him to her. You're telling sort of a bit of a fun narrative within the story, of the picture itself. So it's very much like a book cover where you're actually combining a whole different elements of the story into a completely different image for the cover to get everyone excited. But of course, that particular image may never actually happen in the book itself. So it's a bit of a contrivance, but a staged reality, which is exactly what the idea for this whole picture is. So I wanted to have a bit of fun turning Holmes into obviously an Asian Chinese version of Sherlock Holmes, and so certain iconic features I wanted to keep, like his hat, and the magnifying glass. But I thought there was a fantastic opportunity to start playing with some of his other design features. For instance, turning the pipe from an very English pipe into a long, slender Chinese opium pipe, which kind of long, slender shaped kind of also sort of ties in a little bit to the long, slender shape of the sword. And again, it's just another long object that leads the eye to the face, because the faces of these two characters are the primary sort of focal points for these pictures. The later down the line, I started playing around with obviously bringing in the different hairstyle with Sherlock Holmes as well, a long hair queue, and changing and altering his costume so that at a glance it looks quite European, what you would normally expect to see with Sherlock Holmes, but as you get in closer, you see the Chinese influence. So just what's happening now is quite important. Obviously, I've taken things into colour. I've started to block in the red background. But most importantly, I'm starting to play around with bringing in some green. And a big part of, because this image is going to be dominated by the colour red, it's important to get colour variety into your picture. You do want to sneak in some other colours there, and an obvious choice is picking a complementary colour. I'll just pop up a picture of a colour wheel here, and by a complementary colour I mean a colour that's opposing on the colour wheel, and obviously green is that particular colour that I've chosen here to bring in. And also because this character is not a Caucasian Sherlock Holmes, he's an Asian Sherlock Holmes, and I wanted to try to get a more Asian skin color palette to the picture, to his tonal and color scheme to his skin. In terms of just how I paint, it's particularly digitally. I solve so many of my problems just painting around them, and I move all across the canvas. I try not to get too fixated on one particular place. What is a great idea is to try to block in things quite quickly so that you kind of get a feeling for the mood that you're generating. And lighting is a big part of that too. Um, Lighting is just so important and for creating a really great illustration. And so at the moment I'm just really trying to block in just the basics to get a feel for the picture so that as I slowly render it, I can make those kind of decisions as to where I want to place stronger contrast. Okay, well, I think this could be a good chance to just backtrack a little bit in terms of my process and just talk a little bit about the importance of visual research and research in general, actually. Unfortunately, because of copyright issues, I can't show any of my visual research on this particular job, which is a real shame. But so what I will do is talk briefly about some of the images that I have sourced verbally, and you'll just have to take my word on it that I am using these kind of images for help.